Okay, today is January 20th, 2020. My name is Karen Neurohr, and I'm a librarian at Oklahoma State University Library in Stillwater. I'm here today at the home of Jody Miller, award-winning musician who grew up in Oklahoma primarily, and we're in Blanchard, Oklahoma, here to do an interview for the Spotlighting Oklahoma Oral History Research Project. Jody, I'm so honored to be here today to meet you and visit with you about your amazing career. So thank you very much.
You're most welcome. I'm proud to have you here.
Thank you. Before we move into your amazing career as a singer, let's briefly touch on your childhood.
Okay.
So I read that you came to Oklahoma as an 8-year-old, and you were going to live with your grandmother.
That's right.
Tell me a little bit about that experience.
Okay, well, my folks had got a divorce, and my dad sent me back to Oklahoma we lived in Oakland, California, and I was 8, and they sent me on a Greyhound bus with a person that they knew that lived in Oklahoma, and she got off in El Reno, and I went on from El Reno to Blanchard by myself, and I got off the bus and got my bag, and Blanchard was a town that was just stopping the road at that time, as they call it, and didn't have any cement, very much cement. A lot of dust in the air, and the wind was blowing. I didn't really know where to go, but I started on down the street. South, I was going south. No, I was going north, and ran into Miss Brazel, and I didn't know her. She was out in her yard, working in her yard, and she asked me who I was, and I told her, and I said, "You know how I can get to Grandma Miller's house?" And she told me. So when I went on down the road, followed the instructions she gave me, and I went up to the house. And I thought that it was Grandma's house. It was a small little house and siding on it, and it had a gate around it, or a fence around it, and a little gate led to a porch. And so I stood there for a while. And then all of a sudden, here she come out the door, and she had an apron on and a bonnet. So she must have been outside working too in the yard. But anyway, she had something sticking out of her mouth. She dipped snuff.
My grandmother did that too.
Yeah. And anyway, I told her who I was, and she took me in, and later on Dad came back with my other sister, Carol, and we lived with Grandma until about 2 years, until Daddy got an apartment so we could stay there. And so that's how I got to Blanchard.
Had you been to Oklahoma before that trip?
Yeah.
You had?
Yeah, I did. I was in Oklahoma. We had tried to make I think I was about 3 when we tried to make the trip. I say that because we didn't. My mother was the one that wanted to go to California, and my dad, of course, did not want to go, but he followed her desires, and it didn't work out, so they didn't get along in their marriage either. So they started divorce proceedings, and which thrust me back to Grandma's house. And so that's how that happened.
So you said that you lived with your grandmother a couple of years, and then your father came here, or you and your sister were here?
Yeah.
One of your sisters.
Yeah.
Okay. So what was it like growing up in Blanchard, Oklahoma? You went to school here just
Yeah, I
about
loved it.
every
I
year?
loved it. It was really neat. I liked the people that there was country. That was wonderful. You know, it was really good. I compared to what I had back in Oakland, it was a dream come true. So.
What school activities did you enjoy?
Okay, well, I loved to play basketball. I practiced in front of Grandma's house. She had a little tree out there that had a limb that looked like a basketball basket, and I would always practice with that and shoot. But I got on the team, and I got to play a lot. And our coach was an OSU graduate, and she was meaner than heck. She made us run up and down the bleachers at the gymnasium several times, and we were nearly dead. And but we had some pretty good games and did pretty good. And I went on in high school. As a cheerleader and such as that, you know.
Were you a class officer?
Yes, I was. I was secretary. I was.
Okay. Did you spend your summers in Oklahoma, or did you go back to California?
I went back to California. That was one of the stipulations that they agreed to in the divorce, is that I could go home or go back to where Mother lived. Stay with my mother for the summer vacation. And I didn't like that too well.
You didn't?
No, I didn't like the environment that set up there, and I couldn't wait to get back and get back in school again.
You probably missed your friends, didn't you?
Yeah, I did, and I missed that little town, good little town, and I loved to go to school. I really enjoyed school, and I made pretty good grades, but I had a lot of fun.
Did you work at all when you were in high school?
Yes, I did. I worked as a waitress.
Where was that at?
Well, the first time I was at Mother's house in Oakland, I was 13 years old, and I got me a job as a dishwasher at a little diner. And boy, I had fun there. I had a ball. Those guys would come in there and kid me and say funny things to me, and we'd back and forth and have a lot of fun. Then later on in Blanchard, I got me a waitress job at the Right Way Cafe in Blanchard, and I wasn't a very good waitress. I'd make people wait too long. But that was looking back, I think that was my first clue about entertaining. You could get people laughing and sell them anything.
And you enjoyed that part of it?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, so I had fun meeting people and stuff like that.
So after you graduated high school, did you go get a job then?
Yeah, I did. I went back out to West Coast, and went to Mother's house, and I got a job. My oldest sister, was working for a company, and she got me a job as a file clerk there. And I didn't stay there very long because I wasn't very good, I guess. And I thought about going up north. See, I had 4 sisters, and I thought about going up north to my other sister's house. She invited me to come and stay with her. She knew I didn't like it there in the Bay Area, and so I went up there and stayed with her and for a while, and then my husband and I, we were later married. He and I had dated in high school, and he came up there and got a job too at this little trucking company, hauling logs, and he and I stayed with my sister.
And where did she live then?
She lived in OOHRP.
OOHRP.
And it's spelled just like it sounds.
Oh, okay.
And,
Was it California?
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. And so we together decided we'd go back to Blanchard, he and I.
Mm-hmm.
So we got on a bus and come on back home. And his brother met us at the bus stop in Oklahoma City. And I went on to Grandma's house.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's, yeah.
Okay. And did you work at the Capitol, the Oklahoma Capitol?
Yeah,
for a
I
while?
did. I did. I got me a job at the Future Homemakers of America.
Oh.
I guess I'm trying to decide where that was. And I guess the education department or something.
Mm-hmm.
But I worked there.
So is this when
And I stayed at the Y.
you stayed at the Y?
Mhm. Yeah, I stayed at the Y.
Yeah. Were there a lot of young women staying there?
Yeah, there was. There was quite a few people I'd been playing basketball with. And it was very good. We had meetings and we'd have times when we'd entertain and sing and dance and everything. Mm-hmm. Before I got out of high school, I started singing with just me and my ukulele. And I really enjoyed that. I loved to sing. I was in choir and everything. Had a trio in high school. And we went to state and got superior several times. But I see. Trying to remember.
So I read that you were performing at a coffee house.
Yeah.
In Norman.
Yeah, I had a date to sing there, and so one night the Limelighters were playing at the Oklahoma University field house, and they came in to meet the man that I was on the bill with. I can't remember his name. Mike Settle.
Mike Settle, okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He was an Oklahoman from Muskogee, and he was primarily a songwriter. He went on to write several classics in the music world. Mm-hmm. Dolly Parton had. And then there was another group that recorded his music. But he was very successful. But anyway, that night they came in and heard me. And they were wanting to talk to him. They didn't know me or even care, who I was. But then after the show was over, the man who ran the Limelighters, he came backstage and talked to me and asked me some questions, what I wanted to do. And he told me that he thought I was good enough to be trying the big time. Mm-hmm. And so I'm thinking, well, that'd be good and everything, but I really, my mind was on getting married to Monty, my husband. Mm-hmm. I really wanted that to happen more than anything because I wanted to be a housewife and have children. And so I didn't pay too much attention to him. And so later on, I got a notice from the man at the coffee house. The name of the coffee house was The Jester.
The Jester? Mm-hmm.
And he contacted me and he said, well, he said, you got a little letter from Lou Gottlieb. He's the ramrod for the group that came in and heard you. And so I read the letter, and they said, well, we talked to our agent, and he feels like he can book you if you come back. So by that time, I had married, mm-hmm. and I was only married about 5 or 6 months. And I got thinking about it, and I thought, well, why not? Let's try it. So we both took early vacations from our packed up everything we had, and went on out to California. Went to L.A., and my aunt, Jean, she had a beauty shop on Lower Sunset Boulevard. And we went to her house and stayed with her.
What was her name?
Jean. I can't think of her last name.
Was she your mother's sister?
Yeah, she was my mother's sister. She's a very nice person, a beautiful person. And we stayed with her, and my husband got a job, and I tried to get a job. And I did get a job. I went on every audition I could find in the business. And I had a bunch of records I brought from home with producers' names on it. Before I left Oklahoma City, I had a good friend at WKY, and his name was Alan. I don't remember his last name. But anyway, he had helped Anita Bryant get started. And he gave me a bunch of records. And on these 45 RPM records, it's always got produced by. So I wrote down all the producers' names I could think of to go visit them in L.A.
Oh.
And I did. And so that didn't work.
So was there a song on each side of the record?
Mm-hmm.
And they were you singing, and so you were handing these out to try to get in with the producer?
No, these were hits.
Oh, they were hits.
Of other people's, other artists.
Oh, okay.
But I was interested in knowing the name of that producer.
The producer
that produced that record. And Alan, he agreed with me. He said he thought that was a good idea. And so I tried to get in and see as many of those kind of people as I could, which it didn't really work out.
Oh.
And so we were on our last leg, and we thought, well, what are we going to do now? And my husband came up with a brilliant idea. He was in the horse business with his daddy and family. They raised horses, and they liked to race horses, quarter horses. And he said, Dale Robertson is from Oklahoma, and he's got he had a TV show at the Tales of Wells Fargo or something like that. And so he said, well, why don't we visit him? And I said, okay. So it came time to go see him. Monty had read in the Hollywood Reporter where Dale was doing an animated feature and using the Walt Disney artists. And it was what do you call those that are cartoon type movies. Anyway, I went to see him that day and walked in to his office, and he was standing right there talking to a man. And Dale Robertson happened to be one of the nicest looking men I'd ever seen in my life. He was the most handsome guy in the world, and he was quite clever too. And I was scared to death when I walked up there. I didn't know what to do, so I just blurted out, "Dale, I'd like for you to hear me sing. I'm the best singer in the world."
Oh.
And so he said, "Well, go in that room there. My secretary will take down your number and just make an appointment with me." I said, "Okay." So that's what we did. And she said, "Well, I don't have anything except for a month from now." And so we stayed there an extra month. And I went into his office and sang Scarlet Ribbons for him.
What did you sing?
Scarlet Ribbons.
Scarlet Ribbons.
Yeah, and his wife had just given birth to a little girl. Oh. And so he called at that time, right in front of me. He called the art director at Capitol. He was using the art director at Capitol Records to help him with his animated feature. That's what I was trying to think of what ago. His name is Fred Rice, He was the art director for Capitol Records. And Dale wanted him to get the A&R department to give me an audition in the studio. And so that got done. And we did that.
Did you have to wait a month again?
I don't remember how long it took.
Okay.
It took a while. I think it may have taken another month. But anyway, let's see, where was I?
So you had your audition.
Oh, yeah. I had the audition, and then I got me a job at the Troubadour in Santa Monica.
Oh, that's a famous club, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It is. And it paid $10 a night. And so I worked there a lot, you know. I worked with Hoyt Axton, who was Oklahoman. And he was quite a character. I enjoyed him, and I loved his music. And that night, one night, the A&R department guys showed up at the Troubadour, and we met backstage, and they had a contract for me. And so I signed the contract backstage at the Troubadour.
That night you did?
Yeah.
Oh.
And we started, you know, with a new producer there, or a producer, all of it was new. And we decided to do an album of folk songs. Well, at that time, for a long time, folk music was really hot. The Kingston Trio and like the Limelighters were the top group there.
About what year was this? Do you remember?
60. Well, we got married in 62, and we'd been married 6 months when we went out to California.
Okay.
So I signed the contract in 63, I think.
Okay.
And we decided to do an album of folk songs, but what the cats at the A&R department didn't know was that everybody was kind of sick of folk music, and it was going down. It wasn't selling. So we went ahead with the album anyway, and the name of it was Wednesday's Child. And it was a pretty good little album. Actually, it's my daughter's favorite album. But anyway, we didn't sell very many records. And then there was a man that showed up from Central Songs. He was working for Central Song. He was the editor there. And he went through a bunch of songs and always tried to place them with artists. And very successful. His name was Joe Allison. And he worked for Cliffy Stone, who owned Central Songs. And they were very helpful to me. And he came in and had a song for me. The song was called He Walks Like a Man. And it was a wonderful song. And so we recorded that, and we released it, and it was an instant smash. It just really went really very good on the West Coast. And east of the Mason-Dixon, it wasn't doing any good at all. But at about that time, when I was going up the charts, the Billboard charts, we hit the charts at, I think, 65 or something like that. And we were going up the charts. The Beatles arrived in town, and everybody's position on the Billboard charts changed because their music was so popular. Everybody in the United States wanted to have a Beatles record, and they bought, and the company just dropped everybody else. I mean, they didn't really sign them off or anything, but they just, the interest was gone. Everybody's material was taking a backseat to the Beatles.
How did that make you feel?
Well, I didn't understand it very much. I thought maybe it's just another obstacle. You know, I thought maybe that happened all the time or something. But I didn't particularly like the Beatles records. it was different.
Mm-hmm.
And I never did buy any records anyway, mostly because I couldn't afford it, but I wasn't a fan.
Mm-hmm.
I liked Marty Robbins singing very much as I was growing up. Johnny Mathis, and that's who I really liked. And then I learned how to sing from Kay Starr. She had so many good hits, and I really enjoyed her singing. Tried to replicate some of the things she'd do with her voice.
Mm-hmm.
She was so good. And she's Oklahoman too.
Were you a musician by ear, or did you learn to read music?
Yes, no, I never did learn to
Mm-hmm.
read music, and use it that way. I was asked to teach the music, a couple of music things in school, in high school. But we just, the teacher wasn't there that day, so we just sang a lot of songs and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I never did know how to read music or write music or anything. But,
So walk me through what it means to have a contract with a record label. Do they assign a producer to you?
Yeah,
with that
they did.
contract?
They did. His name was Curly Walter. And he hadn't had much success, but he that day he let Joe Allison come in and produce "He Walks Like a Man,"
Okay.
and that record was enough for me to get an invitation to the San Remo Song Festival in Italy.
In Italy?
And that was how I got there.
Oh.
They had heard "He Walks Like a Man,"
Mm-hmm.
and the San Remo Song Festival is put on by the Italian people, and they take the Italian artist / songwriter and have him write a song for the foreign artist. That would be me, because I lived in the United States, and write a song for me, and I was to learn it and submit it to the festival. So I had to go out. I had to leave the United States and go to Italy. But I learned before I went that I was going to have a baby.
Oh.
Yeah, and so I was afraid they wouldn't let me go on the trip if they knew I was pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
Because back then you just didn't get pregnant. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You weren't supposed to anyway. And I didn't tell anybody I was going to have a baby. Of course, my husband knew, and my mother-in-law knew. But that's all. And so I didn't let anybody know I was going to have a baby. What was so strange about the whole thing was when I had finally gave delivery of my baby, when my mother was ironing clothes at her ironing board at her house, and she was listening to the radio, and the radio said, Jody Miller just gave birth to a little girl, and she had the record queen in the house at the same time. He was jumping up the charts. It was really going good. And she didn't know I was going to have a baby. She ironed, and she left her iron on and burnt whatever she was.
Oh, my goodness.
She couldn't figure it out. She was trying to find out more about it and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I just thought that was kind of funny, but I jumped ahead of myself there.
Did Monty go with you to Italy?
No.
Was he just still working
Yeah.
in California?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So you
Yeah.
had to go by yourself?
Actually, I didn't. My Aunt Jean wanted to go with me, and Capitol sent protege to travel with me and take care of me.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was awfully good. I had a wonderful time because I was pregnant and I got to eat some wonderful food, and I was always starving. So we did real good on the festival. We came in second.
Came in second.
We thought we'd win it, but the artist, songwriter who wrote the song, Pino Donaggio, who later went on to do several scores for movies and very successful man. He had to perform it and he wasn't any good at singing. He was, as a matter of fact, pretty sorry, you know. And so I think I did a pretty good job on my end of it. But when he went out there and sang it, it kind of ruined it for us. He wasn't any good at all.
Did you put your own stamp on the song in some ways?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I did a pretty good job. Because, see, I was there a whole month before I had to perform.
Oh.
I was with teachers and people who taught me how to sing phonetically, that language, of the Italian language. And I had 5 songs. Capitol wanted me to record while I was over there, which I did. And I remember one time we recorded in the church with the acoustics.
Oh.
Yeah, that was good. Anyway, I came back on home, and my daughter was born on May the 8th.
May the 8th.
So I would like to back up a little bit because I need to tell you how Queen of the House, Roger Miller had a smash hit with King of the Road, and he had a friend who was signed to Capitol Records, and she wrote lyrics to his King of the Road and named it Queen of the House. It was about a housewife, and it caught on immediately, and it was an instant smash. And
why do you think it resonated with people? And
well, the lyrics were just really good, and it was clever. To answer, they called it an answer record, which I don't think it was. It really shouldn't have been classified that way. But I was pregnant. I had the baby, just like the song said. We did everything the song said. So I began traveling immediately with the baby, and my mother-in-law traveled with me everywhere I went. And we come back home and go back out again.
Was Monty still living in California when you were traveling after Robin came?
Yeah. We lived out there about 8 years.
Oh, wow.
When she became of school age, we decided to go back here to Blanchard and live. Let her go to school where we did and stuff like that. Yeah, so his family was still in the horse business, and so he decided to get a few head horses and train them to race training, and he did. And he worked for his brother Jack as a groom, and he worked for him for a long time. He was trying to we were trying to make our own way, of course. Get some good horses and stuff. Jack trained for the public, and Monty didn't want to do that. He wanted to produce his own line of horses, the blood that he thought they should have, and try to buy a feed for a good stud feed to a mare and get that going. We came back and lived in this house with his folks, and eventually we did well enough to purchase a horse and get in the producing business, So he continued with that most of his life.
Did he and you go to high school together?
Yeah, he was quite the. He had me sweat off my feet.
Oh,
He really did.
Did you go to prom together? Or dances?
No, he wasn't that type.
Oh,
He didn't care anything about that. He was kind of ornery. But he liked sport. He liked to play by football. He wanted to play football, and he had to learn that he had to go to school after he graduated high school, but play football.
Mm-hmm.
So he went up to Oklahoma City. Got in there and wanted to continue his education in Oklahoma City. Well, he couldn't do that because he was already graduated.
Oh.
They didn't know that he was graduated.
Oh.
So I can't remember the name of the high school. Classen. Yeah, he went to Classen. And he started playing football for him. And he did real well. He was really good.
Mm-hmm.
But he was so crazy about playing football. But they tapped him on the shoulder one day and said, "Hey, buddy, get the heck out of here." And so he'd been found out. And so he went ahead and that was during the high school days.
Mm-hmm. I've read that successful musicians must market themselves to some degree, like promoting yourself as an artist and marketing yourself. Do you have any examples of how you did this?
No, I kind of, when I got fortunate enough to sign with Capitol, that was the top of the heap. That was what most people would build their career in getting a contract. Mm-hmm. But I got the contract first, mm-hmm. without paying any much dues, working at the Troubadour. But that's about all I did. Mm-hmm. And I got to be recording right away. Even though I went through an album that didn't sell, and then my single got shot down. But then when I went to San Remo and like that, I came back and recorded Queen of the House. Mm-hmm. And so I didn't really, I liked folk music. That's what I really was good at. When I lived at the Y in Oklahoma City, I would go down the street to the, at the time there was that library down in town. I would do research on all the folk songs that I had learned and how they got their start, how they got their story, and the history behind it, and all that. Because you had to do that if you were a true artist. Folk music, you had to, like House of the Rising Sun. Most people think that's about a prostitute, but it's not. About a prisoner. And, that's how I learned a lot of songs. For that library, I was glad to have it. I had a repertoire of 200 songs.
Oh, that's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you have all those records that you would listen to as well? How did you were learning about the artist? And
I don't know how I picked up on that. Mm-hmm. How I picked up on some of those songs. I think most of them were cowboy songs. Streets of Laredo, mm-hmm. Shenandoah, mm-hmm. and those kind of songs. They were, but I liked Marty Robbins. Mm-hmm. He had a wonderful voice, mm-hmm. and great singer, and so I did some of his stuff. But as far as marketing my own image or what I wanted to be like, I just followed where they sent me. Mm-hmm. They said, "Look, here's a song that, like my new producer, he said, this is a hit." He said, "We need to cut it as soon as possible because King of the Road is still playing." Mm-hmm. And so we want it to be played at the same time on the radio as the King of the Road. And that's how that happened. Mm-hmm. So things just, like recently, they pulled a surprise out of the hat here in Blanchard and named me as the name on a new theater they're going to be building. And I wasn't told what about this until I walked into the gymnasium with all those kids in the high school on the bleachers clapping for me. And but I didn't know I was going to do that. They said, well, we need you at school. And that's what I thought I was doing. But they awarded me with that. Well, that's kind of the way I did all my career. I just kind of went where they told me to go.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I didn't have any ideas of my own. I just knew that I loved certain songs more than anything else. You know.
So, as folk music was going out, and then pop, I guess that
it is pop.
Pop music.
That was pop.
Became popular in the 60s.
Mm-hmm.
There were a lot of things going on in society as far as like the civil rights movement.
Yeah.
And a lot of unrest, the Vietnam War,
mm-hmm.
and things like that. So you had a song, Home of the Brave.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me a little bit about that song and how that came to be.
Okay. My agent, my man at the Capitol Records, Steve Douglas, he was a saxophone player, and he got him a job at Capitol as one of the producers, and he inherited me. And I remember that night I came in from my trip to Italy, and I was supposed to meet him as soon as possible, and that's where he handed me that record, the Queen of the House, or the tape that the girl who wrote the lyrics had done for him. And so we went in and cut it right away and released it in 5 days. Mm-hmm. The company who pressed their records couldn't get enough made. They were just flying off the shelf. And we would have had more. I think we would have had a gold record if we could have had the material to sell. Mm-hmm. But they couldn't make these records fast enough. Mm-hmm. And so that's what happened to that.
And then the Home of the Brave song came a little later?
Yeah. We were in New York, myself and Steve, and met with the writers the song.
Barry Mann, Cynthia Weil.
Yeah, Barry Mann and Cynthia Weil. I get them mixed up with those other two.
I know,
people.
Goffin and King.
Yeah. We met with him over dinner, and I remember the thing I was most interested in was the recipe for the duck we ate. But they were talking about songs and everything, and so Steve said, I want to record, Jody to record Home of the Brave. And so Cynthia, wow, she said, well, you know, Phil Spector has already got it cut by some trio. You know, Phil Spector was a very successful producer. He invented the wall of sound, which is in percussion. And there was always something going in the background. You just wouldn't do the bass line and the piano and all that stuff. There was a sort of a foundation laid on the track, and it was a solid sound. It would flow with the changes in the chords and stuff like that, but it was always there, and he was very successful at it. So, but we went ahead and recorded it anyway. Mm-hmm. And Steve got behind it and pushed it as much as he could, and it was doing great. It became a big hit for me. Mm-hmm. But yet, it was sort of down as well, what do you call it?
Like a protest song?
Yeah, a protest song. People kind of identified it as a protest song. And I guess it was. because the lyrics, the school board says he can't come to school no more unless he wears his hair like he wore before. And so it was a great song, and I loved the melody too. The melody line was just really good, and I love that song. But unfortunately, it got a bad rap. You know, that's why it didn't get more likes. You know.
Was it too political?
Yeah, certain people didn't like it. You know, the country people, country radio DJs, and like that, they didn't like that. Of course, later on in my career, when I was with Epic, I cut House of the Rising Sun and put it out as the single, the A side, and they wouldn't play that either.
Okay, so I read that after your contract with Capitol ended, and I think we're moving into the late 1960s or 1970s now, and that you called producer Billy Sherrill in Nashville and asked him to become your producer.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
So what was that like, traveling up to Nashville to meet with him for the first time?
Well, what it was is I was playing a date in Kansas City, and I made my airplane reservations to drop by the Nashville and meet him at the airport. And we had a meeting there, and we discussed things. And he told me that he could offer me just a plain old contract, no money or anything up front. I had been off of through the Capitol in, I had an 8-year contract with Capitol. So it was about 71, I guess, 70 or something like that. And so I said, sure, I'll take it, you know. So he and I started cutting immediately. He brought me in the studio, and he was a songwriter. He wrote Stand By Your Man, and he was really a good songwriter, a great producer. I was very fortunate to be in his stable. He was really a nice person too, a very good person, and honest, and he was kind of a rascal in a way, yeah. But anyway.
In what ways was he a rascal?
Well, he was kind of private. My husband was that way too. He didn't want he wanted to do his own thing, and people leave him alone. Oh. That's the kind of way it was.
So where did you stay in Nashville? Were you there by yourself?
No, we met at the airport, and we stayed at the airport, had dinner there, and I got on a plane and went home. Yeah, that night.
Oh.
Yeah, I arranged it that way so I could have several hours there with him.
So then through the 1970s, were you performing a lot?
Yes, I was performing a whole lot. My records started selling. I contacted a man, E.O. Stacy, contacted me about booking me. He was the foremost fair agent, county fairs and state fairs, and he represented Bob Hope and Red Skelton and people like that. He was really a big shot, and he got me several jobs. Yeah. We signed a contract together, and he was from Oklahoma too.
E.O. Stacy.
Yeah,
was his name. Was he living in Nashville?
His base was in Chicago, Illinois.
Oh. So what was that like, doing all those shows a year?
Oh, it was wonderful. It was great. We had carte blanche and everything. the treatment we received. We came into town, and I finally formed a backup band to travel with me, and we flew everywhere we went, and we were at the mercy of sound systems that weren't all that great.
Oh.
By flying, we couldn't take very much, and so it was wonderful.
Did you have your own bus for a while?
No.
No.
I did a study on it. Had somebody, a CPA, do a study on what would be more beneficial for me to have a bus or fly. And he came up with either one, same thing. It cost about the same. And I thought, well, shoot, I'm going to fly. But then, like I say, I didn't realize that would be at the mercy of the sound systems. Most people back then didn't have the sound system they have today, or even the knowledge of it. They had an idea of one fair in Colorado had a CB radio for me to sing over.
Oh my goodness!
And that was in such we just couldn't believe it, That's what I'm talking about.
Was that the worst experience?
Yeah, it just about was.
Did you play your guitar when you sang?
Yeah, I did. But not all the time. I'd pick it up on certain songs.
So were you flying commercial airlines?
Yeah. Frontier Airlines.
Frontier Airlines.
Mostly, mostly Frontier.
Were your shows all across the U.S. or were they mostly in the Midwest?
No, they were just everywhere. Yeah. I liked working up in the like Montana and Wyoming and those states up there. I really fell in love with that country. But then I played a lot of big fairs back east. Like we played the Allentown Fair with Bob there, and 10,000 people in the audience, and so rodeos. I did a lot of rodeos too, and that was a laugh because I couldn't ride a horse, and they put me on a horse because they said, "Well, you have to go around the arena, shake hands with the little kids," and that's hard to do when you can't ride. And you're trying to lean over, but one guy gave me a ring. He handed me a ring. I still have that ring, but it was a nice little ring. But anyway, I'd go around the arena and shake everybody's hands, and then I'd have to gallop all the way out to the end of the arena to go out the gate. Yeah, and by the time I got to that entrance, I was around his neck. I didn't use the stirrups for nothing because I didn't know what they were for. People tried to teach me how to ride, and it didn't do any good.
Oh. So what was it like to be on the road as far as the clothes you wore and doing your laundry and just the basic
Well,
things?
mostly I didn't do a tour where you go to one town, the next town, next day. Mostly mine were one-nighters, what we call one-nighters. So I was all ready to go all the time because I'd come home.
Oh, okay. And then you had time to get ready for the next show.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And then, so did you drive yourself to the airport to catch your flights to go to the shows? You did. Leave your car at the airport, Oklahoma City Airport, Will Rogers Airport.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So what are some of you mentioned that experience in Colorado with the CB radio. What were some of the other best or worst things about those shows that stand out to you?
Well, I enjoyed working with Bob Neurohr.
Bob Neurohr.
We worked in Vegas together.
Oh.
And he was so funny. And in the dressing rooms at these big fancy showrooms, they had it's coming over the loudspeaker in your dressing room. What's happening on stage? I was opening for him, and I'd go back to the dressing room and listen to him, and he would be laughing at his own jokes, but you couldn't hear. The audience couldn't hear him, but he'd go. And then he kind of tried to hide it. And I thought that was the funniest thing I ever heard in my life. I couldn't wait to hear him every night. He was a nice guy too. He and his wife. They invited me out to dinner with him, and they were just so sweet, real professional in every way. Mm-hmm. And then there was the little guy who, I can't remember his name. He and Monty hit it off real good. Do you remember who that was, huh?
Which one?
I worked with that comedian.
Don Rickles?
Don Rickles, yeah. Don Rickles. He and I, he liked Monty. He wanted to hear all about the horses and everything, you know. And he was an old Navy guy. And he got on stage and he would say, how did you like Jody? And everybody go, yeah. And he said, well, you know, she's married to this guy that has horses, and he gets all her money and buys all these horses and all that stuff. He said he's a real shit kicker. He said that on stage one night.
And Monty thought that was funny?
He thought it was hilarious. He loved it.
Oh. So tell me about the USO tours, the Bob Hope United Service Organization tours. How many of those did you do?
Well, you know, that is not correct.
Oh, that's not correct.
No, I don't know how to fix it.
Oh.
But I would go on paid shows with Bob. Oh. Bob paid me. Now, we went, the first gig we did together, we went to an Air Force, and that might have been a USO booking. I didn't know enough about it or really care that much about it to find out what it was, that first booking.
The first one.
But there was a picture taken that night that I'm still using. Mm-hmm. And it was at an Air Force base in Alaska. And I don't know which one that would have been. We can find out, I guess. But later on, I did the Missouri State Fair and the Allentown, Pennsylvania Fair and with Bob because he paid me himself.
Oh.
And the USO didn't have anything to do with it.
Oh, okay.
He would take people, you know, with him to like Vietnam or wherever on Christmas, and he asked me to go with him, and I refused, so I didn't work for him anymore.
Oh, so why did you not want to go? Because of your
I didn't
thing?
want to leave Robin at Christmas. Mm-hmm. I always wanted to be with her during Christmas, and my husband at Christmas.
Okay. Okay, well, so we have that down on the record then, that you weren't doing the USO shows with Bob. You were working for him at other shows.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. What was it like to work for him?
Marvelous. Just marvelous. He taught me a lot. And I'll tell you another person who taught me a lot too was Jimmy Dean. I did the Jimmy Dean shows. I got hired as the girl singer on the Jimmy Dean show, which he had a show for ABC back then, and he was doing real good, you know. And he helped me on my stage work because he and I did a show together up in the northwest part up in Oregon somewhere. When there we all got on the bus, LA, and rode up there and did the show. But he helped me with my stage presence, and I will always be indebted to him for that. What
stands out to you about how he helped you that way?
Well, he would do a show. I mean, he would do a song in his stage show, and the name of it was Honey. And he'd get somebody from the audience and take him up on stage with him and hold hands with her. And he said, all right, we're going to do Honey, and your part is real little. Every time I squeeze your hand, you sing Honey. And so he'd say, I'm in love with you. And he'd squeeze her hand. She'd say, honey, because she wasn't a singer, right? And it was funny. So he told me, he said, all right, I'm going to give this to you. He said, you can have it from now on. I won't do it anymore. And you'll be the one that can carry this and do it from. So I did that. And I learned through that humor will get it every time. If you it breaks down your fear, and it breaks down the audience's apprehension of what they expect from you, So that saved my career. Actually, I wasn't a total flop, on stage. That helped me be a little bit more actress.
That's a great story.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe I've ever told that to anybody else.
Oh. Were there other ways that some of the people that you performed with, you felt like helped you grow as an artist?
Yeah.
Or performer?
I worked with Roy Clark a lot, and different artists, Glenn Campbell, and just the Beach Boys, and I loved all of their things, their songs and the way they did on stage and everything. I learned a lot from them.
Are we doing okay? Do we need a break or anything?
I don't.
Okay. So then, moving out of the 70s and into the 1980s, and you had an album of patriotic music?
Mm-hmm. I had sort of taken a back step out of my career. I wanted to. I didn't want to be away from Robin and Monty too much, and so I just kind of refused dates, and what were you?
The patriotic album?
Oh, yeah, the patriotic. Yeah, I wasn't signed to. I finished my contract with Columbia and Billy Sherrill, and I was with them for 10 years, and so I was on my own, and I had always wanted to do an album of just playing patriotic songs, and my friends thought I was crazy because they said it didn't sell, and they're right, it didn't sell. But at least I did the dream I always wanted to do the LP, patriotic LP, and I did, and it got into the hands of the George Bush campaign people, and they called me on the phone and asked me if I'd do some stops with George. And I said I would.
And this is George Sr.?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I was on many stops with him playing rallies.
Mm-hmm.
And so back then, that was my own production, and I spent my own money doing it, but I didn't know how to market it or get it out and the DJs play it or anything like that, because I had never done that. A big company had always handled that for me.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't make it stick, it was just out there,
What was your role at the campaign rallies? Were you warming up the audience before he spoke?
Yeah, I did. Mostly did just two numbers.
Mm-hmm.
The God Bless America and that Ragged Old Flag. And
what was the second one?
The Ragged Old Flag.
The Ragged Old Flags. Mm-hmm.
And so it was just just added attraction, sort of.
Mm-hmm.
I was billed. But I did several stops with him, and they invited us to the inauguration. I was to sing at one of the balls, and so we went there, and they treated us real good. They put us in a chauffeur-driven limo. And
Did Monty go with you?
yeah, he did.
Did Robin get to go?
No, she wasn't very old then.
Mm-hmm.
We let's see. Yeah, we did that. And that was it.
All right, I'd like to hear a little bit about, from your perspective, about being a woman in show business.
Mm-hmm.
You spanned several different decades of time being a woman artist. And did you feel like you had a say in terms of the songs you recorded, or the clothes you wore, or how you did your hair?
Definitely. I did all that. I was never questioned about that.
Mm-hmm.
They always let me fly with what I wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Did you ever have to fight for something and get them and convince them?
Well, you see, I hired my own band when I go out on road, and the leader of our band was Gene King. He was a guitar player, a fine guitar player, and that he was the only trouble I had because he didn't want me to play the fiddle, and I wanted to play the fiddle on. Thank God I'm a country girl, because I thought it added to it. And I play Sally Gooden, which is the easiest thing to play on fiddle. Mm-hmm. My daddy was a fiddle player, and he taught me how to play that. But my daddy even told me that I wasn't very good. He said, "You don't have it in the hand, in your hand when you have to do the strings, And so I could play my little 4-string guitar, but when it came to the fiddle, Gene would just have a fit and just say, "Don't play your fiddle today. Please don't play." But I got sort of a bad feeling about it. That's the only time I had any trouble with any musician or anything. Mm-hmm. But he and I were like brother and sister, and he finally gave way and let me do it.
So you said you had to hire your own band. So what was that like?
It was easy because my agent, E.O., had also booked the guy that was on Bonanza, Little Joe. What's his name?
Michael Landon?
Yeah, Michael Landon. Mm-hmm. And Michael had hired Gene and his band out of Louisiana. He played with them at the rodeo, and with Michael. And then he said, "Well, just go with me on everything I need to do." And Gene said, "Okay," and went with him. Well, when I needed a band, I thought, well, I'm going to hire this guy because he's great. Mm-hmm. And I did. And Gene really liked working for me, I believe he did. And he stayed with me all my career, as long as I could. And then finally, I said, well, this is it, boys, hit the road.
The Me Too movement has been in the news a lot the past few years. Mm-hmm. And the 60s were certainly a different time period than it is today as far as women and their rights, mm-hmm. and how they're treated by men and what they think is right or wrong or whatever. Mm-hmm. Did you ever have any issues with anything like that?
I never did. I never had a problem there.
Mm-hmm.
And it might have been because I was married to a man who was very strong, mm-hmm. and he wouldn't let anything like that happen. And they knew what would happen if they did. Mm-hmm. He got a reputation for not allowing anything like that because he couldn't travel with me. He had to be with his horses, mm-hmm. and so I guess he built some kind of insurance, on that not happening. Mm-hmm. And I wouldn't let it happen anyway, mm-hmm. because I was deeply in love with my husband always and never wanted to do any of that. It might have been very easy for me to do, mm-hmm. but I never did have a problem.
Within the past few years, Garth Brooks and other country musicians have spoken out about how hard it is for female musical artists to be heard on the radio and for their music to be played, that the men's music is played a lot more. And he said that country radio needs to be more inclusive of women. Did you feel that way at all during your career?
Yeah, there were a few times I did. I truly did. And I think he's right. The females, well, they're just not, because females buy guys' records. They don't buy female records. I mean, unless they like Stand By Your Man, of course. It's not the exception to the rule. But I agree with him.
How does that lack of exposure affect female artists in their careers?
It hurts, because if you don't get airplay, well, you don't get the sales. Your company needs the money, and actually, they're the only ones that make the money. And but Garth Brooks is an exception. He is one of the smartest music men that I've ever heard about. He is very intelligent, and very gifted, and it's good that he can take the lead and kind of tell it like it is, because he can do that. I'm glad for him.
As you moved to different genres of music, was there anything that you learned would help you transition from one to another?
Well, I want to sing gospel music that way. I got a chance to record some gospel music. I hadn't worked in a long time, and I thought that would be a good idea for me to start doing gospel music.
What time period was that?
It was the early 90s.
Mm-hmm.
And I got a phone call from a man, and he said, "Jody, this is I called you and I wanted you to bring some of your material in, let me record it. If you'll put up 8x10 black and white glossy, and we can put it on the wall." And so I said, "That's a pretty good deal, you know." So I didn't hear from him in a long time. I didn't call him back. I guess I was supposed to, but I got busy with something else. But anyway, he called me again, and he said, "Well, did you ever think about doing that?" And I said, "Well, what about me doing a gospel session with you?" And he said, "Oh, that would be great." He said, "Because we're songwriters here, and we write songs all the time, and you can come in and we do it for you." And that's exactly what happened. He was just out of this world. He was a great musician, could play anything. And his brother was a songwriter. And his family could sing as well. They did backup singing. And so it was all arranged. He'd call me on the phone and play the song for me and say, "What do you think about this one?" Well, every one of them were great. It's a good little song, gospel song. And so I made an appointment to go up there and lay down my vocals. And as I was going up there, I was driving Monty's pickup. And I was thinking, what am I doing? What in the world is this that I've got here that I'm doing? How did this happen? And for me to get a whole session for nothing. And I showed up there that night at the studio.
Where was the studio?
Blackwell, Oklahoma.
Blackwell, Oklahoma. And what was this man's name?
Cal.
Cal?
Cal Denison.
Cal Denison.
Cal Denison.
Yeah. And so he gave me the earphones, and he told me who the booth was for me to sing in. And I said, "Just a minute." to him. I said, wait a minute. And I went down on my knees and I asked the Lord, I thanked him for this session. And I sort of repented of my sins and rededicated my life, because I had been saved as a young girl, but I didn't follow him. And all of a sudden I knew you just can't say, well, okay, I'm going to sing a gospel song. You've got to be a believer. You've got to be someone who knows what you're singing about, and your heartfelt soul has to be in it. And I felt that night in that presence of that studio, that good, honest man who was trying to help me. And of course, he was getting his stuff cut too, but yet I didn't have it. I never was a songwriter. I couldn't write any song. I could just sing is all I could do. And so I went on. We got the session cut, and there was real good material. And I started working at churches, and that was completely different from anything I'd ever done.
In what ways?
Money.
Oh.
There was very much money to be made. And of course, I had my LP that he had made for me. Cassette, it was a cassette. And I'd sell those at the churches. I did pretty good, but it wasn't anywhere close to what I was always making. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Was that mostly in Oklahoma?
No, it was mostly in Texas.
Oh.
Yeah, I got more offers from Texas people
Mm-hmm.
than I did the Oklahoma. I never could figure that out.
Were you driving yourself to these
Yes,
shows?
I drove it myself
Mm-hmm.
all over Texas,
Mm-hmm.
and I enjoyed it. I
Mm-hmm.
enjoyed being by myself and doing my shows and seeing people with tears in their eyes and understanding what I went through to get to where I was that day. Yeah.
So were you speaking as well as singing?
Yes, I was giving my testimony
Mm-hmm.
because there was a time in my life when I reached out for other things to try to be happy. And of course, I was happy. I had everything I ever wanted. And I started using alcohol. And I gave that up when that night I went down on my knees in the studio. And so that was my testimony, that I went all over the world singing and do all the TV shows and everything like that. But what happened is that I get more out of the Christ who died for me. And I was happy. I mean, I was a very happy woman. I was singing about the Lord, and I found what I was looking for, you know. Because you can have some wonderful things happen to you, but you're still alone. And I was lonely. I would miss my family. And so I turned to alcohol and finally was rescued.
That sounds like a life-changing experience.
It was for me.
Mm-hmm.
It definitely was.
Mm-hmm. Was it hard to juggle your professional identity when you would come back home and you had your personal identity and you had a professional identity? So what is that like to have the two and to be going back and forth? Is it something you just become used to?
Yeah, it has to be,
Mm-hmm.
because it never change.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't change. I was expected to do things that I didn't really want to do. Like they would say, well, we want you to ride in our parade or something. And, little things like that. I didn't want to do stuff like that. And
You mean here in Blanchard?
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. I didn't care too much about doing that, but I'd go ahead and do it anyway. But that's to answer your question.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I feel like it was completely different
Mm-hmm.
because I used to get paid for things like that.
Oh,
Yeah.
mm-hmm. And your town doesn't understand that, do they?
No.
Not really. Yeah. If you were starting out in the music business today, what do you think that would be like for you
When I was young.
as compared to when you were young and started out? If you were just trying to get into the music business now in 2020, how would that be different from what you went through?
Well, it would be quite impossible. It just wouldn't work out, I don't think. First of all, I'm not a writer of songs. If I could write my own songs, that would be different. But I'm dependent on songwriters bringing me their stuff, and I don't play that field anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's been challenged to say, well, why don't you try and do an album completely different, or out of left field? And I go, yeah, okay, I'd like to do that, because I really would. Mm-hmm. I'd like to sing another genre of music. I'd like to do some jazz stuff and like that, just with a record.
Mm-hmm.
Just
mm-hmm.
because I know I could do it. So I'd like to do it, but I don't know. I don't think I could get anybody persuaded to back me up,
Would people send you their songs?
Yeah.
They would?
Oh, definitely. That was the big deal. I had a lot of people that would send me stuff.
Did you have to handle your own correspondence with people?
Mm-hmm.
You did?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That must take a lot of time.
Well, it didn't take me a lot of time.
Mm-hmm. In what ways did you and Monty support each other over the years?
Well, I give him my money and he'd give me his. That's how we supported each other.
So financially, you depended on each other then.
Yeah, really, we did.
Mm-hmm.
He did real good in the horse business. He bought a young horse out of a sale for $1,900
Mm-hmm.
and sold him for $3 million.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah, yeah. He shared the money with his folks,
Mm-hmm.
with his family. Split it all up every time we got paid $750,000 ever for about 5 years or something like that, and he gave them their share
Mm-hmm.
of it, and I thought that was good of him.
Mm-hmm.
He sent a lot of his kinfolks to college
Mm-hmm.
for that money that he gave them.
Mm-hmm.
They wouldn't have their college money. And my daughter, of course, she went through OCU. And she got to graduate there.
What was that like for you, having her go through college? Was it fun for you to
Oh, it was
to
wonderful because she got the lead in just about every opera or show, New York.
Was she a musical major?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, she made it. She got, she got her degree and everything. And then she came to me and said, "What am I supposed to do with this?"
What did you tell her?
I didn't know what to tell her.
What sacrifices? We all make sacrifices in our lives in one way or another. What sacrifices did you have to make for your career or family?
Well, it was a time spent with them. I sacrificed time. That's why in the 80s, I backed up because little Robin, she graduated high school and went to college and everything. But she was always also at a younger age playing basketball. And I'd love to go see her play. And if I was on the road, I couldn't see her. You know, so it's sacrifice there.
Have you been able to spend time and watch your grandchildren as they grow
You
up?
bet, you bet. I have a wonderful two grandchildren. They're both very talented in music.
Oh.
And my little granddaughter, she's a good basketball player. I took a lift about that, and she loves it. She's a good soccer player too. She'd rather play soccer than basketball, but anyway.
What advice would you give to women who want to pursue a musical career?
Well, I would tell them the same thing I tell anybody that they don't have it. Just surround themselves with good people. Try to get the good people to help you, and be willing to work really, really hard, and I guess that'd be all.
What stands out to you about some of the Oklahoma women who are successful singers?
Well, they have not been too demanding. They've been cool, real, and like Reba and Christian Chenoweth, or whatever pronounce their name. They're nice kids. They're just good people, and I don't know the girl that's been so popular lately that won the
Carrie Underwood?
Carrie Underwood.
Mm-hmm.
I've never met her or anything. Well, I've never met the other two either. But they seem like they're not affected too much. They're willing to give of themselves, and they always look good, and everything. So.
Okay, let's. We're going to wind down here, I think, with the questions that I have. So I want to move into a little bit of information about your awards. That you've won so many awards over the years. You've been nominated for many awards over the years. I'm glad you brought up the Performing Arts Center that will be named for you.
Yeah.
That you just found out about Friday. That's wonderful.
Yeah, I know it. I'm just tickled to death about it.
That's great. So when you think of the different awards that you've been honored with, which ones are the most meaningful to you?
Well, it was really good timing for me to win a Grammy. Even though at the time I didn't consider myself a country artist, but still they gave me the Grammy, and I'm going to give it back to them. But this thing that happened the other day, though, my friend Jennifer McMullen, she pointed out to me. She said, "You know, with your name on this Performing Arts Center," she said, "in the future, people will play your theater and say your name." And I think she used something like Miller, the Miller place or something. And man, oh man, that's quite a thing for my little daddy fiddle player to think about that. My dad would just be doing cartwheels, over that idea. My mother too. It's more meaningful, I think, for me to get that name on that Performing Arts Center than any other award I've ever won. I believe it would be. But I'm thankful for every one of them.
Mm-hmm. I understand that you've had some community involvement over the years with the American Legion Ladies Auxiliary.
I was president of our chapter here in Blanchard for a while,
Mm-hmm.
and I always got into it with them. Worked hard to try to.
Why was that important to you?
Well, my dad, he was in the First World War, and I sang the national anthem so many times, and I would look at people and they'd be crying. And I was think to myself, well, that really means a lot to them. That national anthem is a beautiful, beautiful song, and it means so much to people, and their country. It's too bad that recently our country is going through a place where everybody's against each other for some reason, and that's bad. That's really bad, and it's too bad that it came along like that. But I saw what these patriotic songs could do. They could heal you,
Mm-hmm. Tell me a little bit about the Shine Foundation. You and Wanda Jackson
Mm-hmm.
do some benefits for that.
Yeah, I
right?
really believe that Brian Mon, he thought of that years ago and thought it would be a good idea
Mm-hmm.
to have people that were incarcerated to get out and clean up the streets and roads in their town in exchange for serving time. And then later on, he had a good girl who worked for him who suggested, why don't we move this into the high schools and let the people in the high school get out and earn maybe some kind of scholarship or something to clean up. And so that's been happening, and I truly believe in that. I think it's a great idea,
Mm-hmm.
and he's been successful with it.
How much do you still perform these days?
Well, I don't perform that much, but I still like to. I get excited when I can go out and sing.
Mm-hmm. In what ways is your preparation for those shows different from earlier in your career?
Well, it takes me twice as long to do anything, to get ready or to plan for it or anything.
Uh-huh.
I have my daughter. She is a vocal coach. She has her own business, and we formed a group. She and I and her son, who happens to be a classical pianist, and we named ourselves the Three Generations. And so we go out, and I get to go with them because she drives,
Mm-hmm.
and he carries all the luggage. He's the roadie.
Mm-hmm.
And we've taken the little Layla with us too, my granddaughter. She can play the flute and the guitar, and she has some percussion instruments that she uses too. She is very good at keeping time, and she enjoys playing. She has a good ear too. She recently learned how to play the guitar, and she's really sped up on that. And done real well. So anyway, I like working with them because
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to worry about anything.
Mm-hmm.
All I can do is get up on stage.
What does Blanchard mean to you?
Well, now it means a heck of a lot. After that deal the other day, yeah, they people in Blanchard are very respectful of me. They treat me good. They friendly, and they're just it's a good community. Wonderful people.
What does Oklahoma mean to you?
Well, I think state of Oklahoma is in a class all by itself. The people here are just so honest or something. They're clean and nice and everything. It's too bad that some people don't like it and want to change it and stuff, but by doing terrible things like shooting up shopping centers or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But Oklahoma has it's kind of a different, and I can't put my finger on it, but it's really a different kind of a place to live. I've seen so many states and everything, and been through every state in the United States except Maine, and I find that they're all fine states, but I guess it's just home to me.
Mm-hmm. How do you want to be remembered?
Well, I like to be remembered as somebody that encourages others, because I have had a lot of people come to me wanting advice on what to do, and I have always been honest with them, and tell them the truth about what they need to do, you know. So encouraging people is a gift, I believe, and I think it's a gift that I have, because there's always different ways in a person can make their life better, and they have it inside to do better if they would use it properly and actually just go after it. So I think that's important. My little daughter, she goes through the same thing with her students. She'll have somebody that says, "Can I do that song?" And she'll say, "Okay, yeah, you can learn it and try it." And then when she hears it, it's awful.
Oh.
And she doesn't know what to do about it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, that's the only problem that you run into. Sometimes the person needs to be told, "I don't know if you could do this or not,"
Mm-hmm.
you know. But you have to be awfully good to make it in the ministry. You have to be above and beyond what everybody else is doing. And you have to be different.
Mm-hmm. Is there anything that we haven't covered that you would like to include?
No, you covered a lot of stuff that I didn't even remember.
Well, I think that's everything that I was hoping that we could get through today. So
Okay.
I thank you very much for your time.
Well, I thank you too. That was great.
Like I said before, I'm honored to be here and to meet you and hear more about your life, and
Yeah.
just really appreciate this opportunity.
Well, thank you,
you.
Karen.